Hello, everyone. My name is Kashawn Hopkins. I'm an instructional technology specialist at Oklahoma Public School Resource Center. And on this very special 50th Tech Talk, I'm going to be talking about Prodigy, which is a game-based tool, and it's structured to teach. The very first time it was structured to teach math. Now they've incorporated a little bit more English. But it's a fascinating tool with tons of features that I would love to unpack here. And so before I get too deep into that, I'm joined here once again with my colleague. If you don't know him, you should definitely get to know him. He'll be able to help you out a lot. So go ahead.
Hello, I'm Kurt Bernhardt. I'm the technology director for OPSRC. Kashawn and I make up the technology team here. We're here to help you with anything technology-wise, whether it's internet or teaching teachers how to use technology in the classroom. If you need us, you can just reach out to us, and Kashawn will let you know how.
I would argue the best way to do that is through our email, techteam@opsrc.net. We should get a little communication sent to both me and Kurt, and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. If you are here for this Tech Talk, I have the slides linked over here. You want to make sure that you grab those because they contain not only my research, but a bunch of resources that I think will help either reinforce anything that I've talked about or extend any of the ideas that I'm going to present over here. So I'm going to read it out since it's case sensitive. It's going to be lowercase t, period, ly, / uppercase e, lowercase g, uppercase c, m. Or you can pop on over to opsrc.net / tech talks. If you go there, and we'll just go there for a hot second, you'll see our page where all the tech talks live. We have our upcoming tech talks that you can register for, a button in the middle where you can suggest future tech topic tools or topics, or you could visit the archive tech talks with all the other 49 ones that I've done so far. So each of them comes with a recording of the tech talk, which is one that I'm doing for this one, and a slide that has relevant resources in there. So we have different subjects like technology standards, tech integration models, special interest topics, and individual tech tools. And so you want to visit through those, and especially the ones that are very similar to Prodigy. Things like you've probably heard of Kahoot. I've gone over Blookit, Gimkit, and all of them providing different game-based style types of tools here. A lot of them that I've been structured for review, and I think this tool can also be used for review. But what it sets this one apart, what sets Prodigy apart from these other tools, is I think it is also a good learning tool as well. It has all that packaged in there, and it's all standard aligned. You'll see in a bit. But what I'd like to do at this point, if you're following along with me, is show you what Prodigy looks like on the students' end first. And so it looks a little something like this. It's really sort of two layers here. The first layer is the game layer, where you're essentially playing through a role-playing game. And you have this little avatar. You can see my little guy over here named Theo Thundershard. He's a little wizard guy, and he has these little pets that you start the game with, and you can slowly gather some in here. And so you can play the game. Right now I'm doing it through keyboard and mouse. But you can also do it through portable devices as well as iPad. There's Android apps as well that you can get this and use the touch interface to work with these problems here. But so this is sort of the game layer here. But when you engage the story mode, you fight these little monsters down over here. And I can click on that monster there, and I get into a little wizard battle here. So on here, I have my abilities that I can use. The game explains through all of this, but I skipped all of that since I've already gotten a lot of practice here. I'm going to use Starbit Blast on the enemy here, and this is where the game transitioned to the content part of the stage here. And so I have my questions here. It's asking me what's the shape of the distribution of the graph. I can, on the top left-hand corner, if I click read aloud, it will read out the questions to me. So a nice little accessibility there. I can also click the little light bulb for tips on here if I need a reminder. Since this is some practice problems on here, it gives me some tips just in case I might need some help. So this reminds me that graphs that look like this are left skewed, so I can use that to help me cast my spell. And so that when you say cast your spell, you're really confirming your answer on here. So you can see the animations look pretty nice, very straightforward. This is geared towards a younger audience, so grades 1 through 8 is what it's geared towards on here. And so I'm going to use this different ability star cluster on here, and it gives me a new question. Now, a couple of aids that you might have on here. On the right-hand side, you may have noticed there's some pens here. And so if I need a little bit of space to work out some problems, I can do that. There's erasers as well on the top right-hand corner. If you click that 3x3 grid, you have a couple of different manipulatives, like you have counters that you can pull out, or base 10 blocks for counting as well, or you have fraction bars. So it's real nice that you have a bunch of different options. So if you don't have the manipulatives physically, you can at least use things that are packaged inside of the question here. Now, if I get the question wrong on here, I'll cast the spell, will give me some feedback on here, and it will encourage me to use some of the tips. And sometimes, depending on the question, it will also give you in context tips as well around the questions themselves. So I can change this, but it will also log how I did on the question through the reports, which I'll show a little bit later. So I think that is probably it, just showing you a little piece of what this looks like. There's so much more to explore, but I want to get to some of the stuff on the back end here. My objective for this Tech Talk is, after this Tech Talk, educators will be able to integrate Prodigy in their classroom to help students remediate and extend their learning. For the schedule, we got kind of a basic schedule going on here. I'll start with the tool overview and do a bit of a showcase, just answer a few questions about Prodigy, and then show you how to do a few beginning steps if this is the first time you're using the tool. The next thing is that I'm going to spend a little time talking about integrating technology. I always like to have this part as a part of my Tech Talk, because I think it's a good idea to plan how to use the tool before you implement it. And then I'm going to combine those first 2 points and talk about some tool applications. During that part, I want to invite you to think about, what will this tool look like if you used it in your classroom? And then finally, we'll wrap up. I'll share resources and share some appreciation for you listening through another one of these Tech Talks. So, take a quick sip, and then we'll get started. So a few questions that I would love to answer before we jump into the showcase. First of all, basic definition of Prodigy, just in case someone ever asked you and you want something to pull up here. It's a game-based math, and also there's an English portion of it as well. They're adding more of it in there. The math section covers grades 1 through 8, but the English portion only covers 1 through 6 on there. And the grade parts are really important, because that is how the questions are populated. It's based off of your region and the standards associated with that region. So pretty nice adaptive platform here. A couple of features, like I just said, the questions are adjusted based on the grade, and there is a placement test the student take, but it's not framed as a placement test. It's just, questions. It's just a part of the game. Everything's integrated in together. So the first handful of questions is just a wide breadth of content material that students will have to work through and try to figure out where they are in terms of their abilities there. There is, if you already use Google Classroom and Clever, there's really nice class import features. So if you already use either one of those tools, Prodigy works really nicely with them. Nice integration for that. Like I said before, and it's one of the things that I think sets this tool apart from things that are similar to it, are each of the questions and the lessons, they're all standard aligned. In fact, if you want to assign specific types of questions, you'll do it by picking standards from your grade and your region, like whatever state that you happen to be teaching from. So real nice that you can do that. You do have assignments, so it's hard to pick specific questions, but you can pick a standard, and each one of those standards has a pool of questions for it to get from. One of the features that I think you should definitely take advantage of is reports. I think this is a huge boon that Prodigy, it's already packaged as a part of their free accounts that they have on here. So if I didn't say it before, you can get through essentially the whole base game. With the free accounts, there are a few limited parts that I'll try to point out here and there, like as you're playing through the game, you can change the way that your avatar looks, and some of that might be logged out. And Prodigy might try to get people to sign up for memberships to try to get through some of those extra features. So it's just something to keep in mind. And another thing that sets Prodigy apart from some of the other tools that are like it is that there is a parent-specific platform. In fact, Prodigy has done a pretty good job in terms of putting support specifically for parents who might not know what Prodigy is. And they can use this parent platform to get an idea of not only what their child is doing inside of their class, but also how they are progressing. And in some small way, you can also have parents generate content for their child as well, depending on what their needs are. So I'll show a bit of that when we get time. And then finally, you can access Prodigy through prodigygame.com. That's the address. You want to make sure that you have it so you can visit it there. Before we jump in, you can go to that website if you'd like, but I created this slide over here to give you some first steps, and we're going to try to go through a couple of these through the showcase. First of all, we're going to create a class, then we're going to add students in that class, and then have students play through that class. They'll log in or use their logins. We're going to generate some of that when we're adding students. They're going to try to view some reports, and if we got some time, we'll try to invite parents, and I'll show you what the parent dashboard looks like. So this is how we will get the train rolling on here. I'm going to get started at prodigygame.com. So let's swap over to that. Now I've cheated a little bit here. I'm already logged in. I've had a little bit of an issue logging, it taking a little while between just loading some of the pages on here. And so I've already logged in at this point, and I'm at the dashboard. I'll show you what the main screen looks like once it's loaded up here. But when you get here for the first time, it'll look a little something like this. It'll also give you some little pop-up tooltips, but it's really nice that they have put some videos just to help guide you through and show you what the first couple of steps look like. So if you want to review any one of these, I think it's a good idea here. First up, I think is a good place to start is on the left-hand side. If you click on classrooms, you can start your class. You can either do that by clicking the button over here that says create a new class, or clicking import from Google Classroom or sync with Clever on the right-hand side. I'm going to click create a new class and just put something down here like Hopkins homeroom, something like that. Next, I will select a grade. Now, this is a very important step. You want to make sure that you pick the grade that is actually associated with your classroom, because this will determine the types of questions that the students will run across. So if you're using this for like a remediation class or something, you might need to scale this down. Or if you're using it sort of like an accelerated learning style thing, you might want to scale the grades up. But this is a very important step here. So I'm going to click third grade. Let's do that. And then click create classroom. So awesome, straightforward. That's it. That's all you need to do for creating a class. Now we must fill it in. And you could do that through the left-hand side that says student roster. Now, if you import from Google Classroom, it'll automatically take the roster from that and then dump it in there. So you can potentially skip this step, but for right now, I'm just adding I'm manually adding students into this class, and it's pretty straightforward. But if you click on student roster, I'm going to click on add students here. And you have two options here. You can either create entirely new accounts, which is what I'm going to do now, or if students already have existing accounts, like for example, if they already have a login, like for Google Classroom or something like that, you can click link accounts. What it will ask you to do is share this classroom code. That way, when students log in using like their Gmail into Prodigy, it will ask them what their classroom code is going to be, and this is what you share with them. So shoot it out in an email, or you could take care of it all in class so you can sort of troubleshoot if there's any problems with devices. I don't think that's a bad idea to start here. But I'm going to show you what it looks like to create new accounts. So just click the left-hand option, create accounts. And what you will need to do is put in a first name and last initial. So I could put in here Kurt B. Let's go with Gene P. And go with Brett. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. You can add as many as you'd like in here. But once you have the list going on here, I'm going to click on Add Students, and it just dumps them all in there for me. And it will give you some setup instructions, which is nice because if you click on View Login Details, awesome. It will give you a list of names, usernames, passwords, all that good stuff. And you can even click Print List, which is pretty cool because it gives you not only the list view, but these little cards that you can like cut out and share with your students, or you can keep it as part of your own records if you like having physical copies. So real cool that you have all of this at the ready. Additionally, if you need to pull up the login cards again, there's a little button over here that says login cards. You click on that, it will open up a new window and bring you back here where the print list is. Okay, well, let me grab one of these. Grab Brent B's. And then you can see the progress bar here. Right now, I can see how many students have actually logged in, how many have started playing, how many have started their placement tests, and whether or not I can invite parents. So if you click on invite parents, this is where you can enter in email addresses and pair up students with their parents. So quite nice that you're able to set a lot of them up with their accounts, and it will shoot them an email and basically just guide them through the steps on how to log in there. But yeah, from here, you just have students play. So let me see if I have. Okay, so I'm going to log out here so you can see what the front page looks like. So we've created the class, we've created student accounts, we have the student login information, you share that with your students, and then they go to prodigygame.com, they go there, and then they go up to play now, top right-hand corner. And I'm going to just copy this username over here. This is probably going to take a second because it did before for me, so hopefully it won't take too long since we're on the live session here. But whenever they log in, they have an option to go to home or school. The difference between the game mode is home, it lets them pick sort of these little worlds for them to log into, or just play without having anybody else run around. If you do the school option, anybody that is associated with that class can see the other avatars sort of run around and them playing their game. So kind of a nice little multiplayer feature that you have there. But I'm just going to click, let's do home. Home sounds fun. You also have the option for math or English on there. Just students need to pick the right subject for them. But it's kind of nice that they have that there, and they're always growing the English portion of the to try to catch that up in terms of like grades there. So try to keep in mind the restrictions for that. Okay, whenever you first start the game up, you can create your little avatar. You have a couple of different hairstyles that you can pick from, different eye colors, skin colors. So handful of options you got there. And once you're ready, click next. Since I've picked the home option, I have these different worlds that I can click on, or I can play offline, that's fine. And then once the game has loaded up, you have this little story. The music is going to play. You have voiced gameplay here, and there's like a little story for you to follow, which is nice. And a lot of it is pretty straightforward. Like it'll explain to your whoever's playing how to guide themselves through. Now, when you're first starting up the game, you got to have a name for your little avatar. You can't actually type it out. I imagine this is just to make sure that students aren't putting anything inappropriate on here. So I'm going to click the random button. Yeah, sure, I'm Elliot now, and I'll click done. And yeah, and all the games start out the same way. whenever you do go through the like opening tutorial levels, the game does branch out and you can sort of pick which worlds that you want to jump to, and all the worlds are different and you have different monsters attached to them. But you can see how it's walking me through, like if you've never played a role-playing game before, it'll walk you through some of those steps. And here we have a question that is associated with my state and my content level, and it's just giving me an idea of how things are going for the student. Okay, I think that's it from there. Let me exit out of that. All right, it's mad at me right now because I logged in as a student and then I just jumped out of here. So let me re-log back in. Give me a moment. And we'll get there. In fact, I want to take a moment to let you see what the parent side of things look like. So I'm going to log in while I'm remembering here. And I think this session is going to go a little bit long on that. Because I definitely want to show you this in reports, and then we'll get into tech integration. Yeah, apologize for the wait on this. I've been having issues trying to get into here. It gets there eventually. But yeah, I can see right here, I've just logged in. This is associated with a different account that I've been working on, but I can see things like what skills this my child has. So we're in the parent dashboard here, what things they're currently practicing, what skills they've mastered. I can see their weekly progress, like how many questions they did per day. I can give my child little goals for them to do, and it gives them like little in-game rewards. I can see recent activity, and it color codes them using the standard color coding on there. So green being mastery, yellow being they're working on it, and red being they need remediation on this one. And it also even gives me an idea of how they're progressing in terms of the questions that they've answered. So, you know, it's kind of hard to really figure out if someone really knows the surface area of a net when they've only answered 2 questions on them. So they might need some more data on that. It gives them a little bit more context there. Additionally, I can look in where it says may need help on that skill and click on view. And this takes me to a practice area. Now, this is partially locked behind like premium features that they want, you know, parents to pay for. But on some of the pieces of content, like the surface area of a net, I can ask for practice sheets. So this is where you can generate a practice sheet for you to work with these problems. So if parents want to, if they have the initiative, they can work through those problems with their child. And each of them comes with sheets, like a little PDF that they can download. And it comes with answers as well. So really quite nice that they can do that. But yeah, it's pretty good that they can see through the progress that their child is making. They can even send them little words of encouragement. So it says you can have a cheer and you can say who it's from, and then you can send it out. It's very straightforward stuff. And on the child's end, they get, you know, a little nice message and a little bit of a reward on there just to keep the motivation going there. So real nice stuff to see that a parent dashboard is part of this. Okay, let me see if I can relog this back in. If it takes a while, I think I will talk about technology integration while it loads up. Ooh, one other thing that I do want to point out on the front page as well is that there's support for parents. Under parents, if you go into resources, you can see a ton of things you can send them. And there's also support for teachers as well. So great stuff, pocketed under there, I think. But let me see if I can log back into my teacher's account and show you what some of the reports look like. I think there's some really useful things under there. One of the other things that I haven't talked about yet is assignments. There's different types of assignments. There's 3 of them, and it really just depends on, do you want more of a formative assessment type assignment, or like a summative quiz style assignment, or do you want something that will kind of mimic what state testing looks like? Oop, logged me back into the parent one. Okay, I guess I just need to log out manually here. Log back in here. So a little bit of a account switching for this one. While it does this, I do want to talk a little bit about technology integration. I think it is a good idea to always have a plan. If you're going to introduce a piece of technology in your classroom, have a plan for it and how you want to use it. There's lots of different ways to answer the question, how are you going to integrate technology? I'm going to highlight one of the ways, which is one of my favorite ways, is the technology integration matrix. The idea is that there are 5 characteristics of learning environments, and there's 5 different levels of technology integration, starting from the left-hand side, which is the least complex, to the right-hand side, which is most involved here. The 5 different characteristics of learning environment, according to technology integration matrix, is active, collaborative, constructive, authentic, and goal-directed. And I'm going to pick one of these and focus on what would it take to introduce this tool and work on one specific characteristic here. So this is through an activity called Move Up a Level. The idea is that you'll take one characteristic, in this case active, which is defined loosely as engaged instead of receiving information passively, and then guide it through the different steps of technology integration, depending on where your students are at and also where you're at and when you're teaching here. So, great. Since I'm talking about it now, I'll just talk very briefly about what this looks like. And so try to imagine, what would this tool look like in this classroom, with some practical steps that you can take here. And I think the very first step here is a pretty good first step, which is the entry level of technology integration, which is characterized by passive use of the tool here. So in this case, students will do your basic steps. They'll log in and they'll take the placement test. So they'll do those first couple of steps that I showed you there when I logged in. Once students feel comfortable enough with the tool, just getting in and regularly logging in, I think it is a good idea to try to phase them up to the adoption phase of technology integration. This is characterized by more procedural use of the tool. You're using some of the basic features here, and they're getting more comfortable with the tool here. So in this case, students just answering questions, playing through the game, exploring the avatars, clicking on the buttons, really just kind of playing around and seeing what options are out there. But of course, you want to bump this up eventually. From the adoption phase comes the adaptation phase. So that's the next level there, which is more characterized by more independent use of the tool. In this case, and it'll be a nice segue for me in a minute, a good use of this tool here is to try to put what you can into the student's hand. This is sort of transitioning the teacher's centered use of the tool to a more student-centered use of the tool. So this would be like taking advantage of the report features here, sharing some of that data with your student and having them choose what individualized assignments that they can practice on here. So 2 parts there, taking advantage of the reporting features and the assignment features, because you can actually assign specific assignments with specific content standards adapted to them to the student. And you can do it like in a groups of students or like individual students. Now that will probably take a lot more work. You might want to like break them down into like groups there, depending on how you want to have that worked out. But yeah, it's a little bit more complex. It's a little bit more involved, but I think that we'll get more out of the tool there if they're making targeted decisions on what content they're actually going to cover, encounter in the game. But yeah, maybe I will focus a little bit on the report feature here. So under these sections that say math and English, you can click on either one of them depending on the content that you're using this for. You can go through and view reports on here. So I'm going to click on reports. And you can view different reports on here. Like if I wanted to go and see what the progress looks like, I can click on view report. And oh, wait, am I in the right one? Hang on. Oh, I'm in the Hopkins homeroom. Yeah, so there isn't a whole lot for me to see here. So I'm going to swap over to something that you will see some stuff for. Let me go back. I'm going to go back to dashboard here. And if you go to the dashboard, you can see how my class is doing, how many questions they have answered. On the right-hand side, you can see who are my leaders here. I can even create classroom challenges to send out to the class here. And I can see who has finished their placement test, who started, who hasn't started, what types of skills are my students running into, or I could view an individual report for the skill activity log on here. And if I can see if this one student's doing well, some of them behind, I can click on the individual standard here and see who falls under what categories on here and what's a sample question that's attached to the standard. So I have a better idea what that looks like. And so there is a ton of information on here, and I might revisit Prodigy again so we can go a little deeper dive into a couple of these things, but there's tons of information that you can use here to get targeted remediation or targeted extension on here, depending on where the students are at. One last thing that I do want to share here is at the very top, because right now, students, like if they have a fresh account, they have to go through a placement test. And I recommend that you let them go through that before you actually put up assignments, because I know the temptation is to want to control what types of questions that you want them to run through, but really you want to get an idea of like where they're at first, and then you can start pushing content. And so you'll see students doing their placement tests and on here, and once they're all essentially done with that placement test, it gives you an idea of where your students are at, where they are at as a class. You can even click detailed breakdown if you want individual student reports here as well, but we'll spend more time on this later. Let me focus on assignments real quick here. So if you want to throw an assignment to them, top left-hand corner, I'm going to click on plus assign. It will take me to the assignment section. And here are the three different types of assignments that I was talking about before. So the very first one is more like formative style assessment. So plans keep students with the standard. You pick one standard. Well, this works best with one standard. You can pick multiple standards on here if you'd like, but I think this works out well. You can even swap your different grades if you want to mix and match standards between grades, and you can filter this down by domain as well. So real easy to pick some of this stuff out. Once you click that standard, you'll give it a name because you can mix up different standards. I'll just say test, and then wait, where'd it go? Did I? Okay, and then I will pick a starting date and an ending date here, and then click create. And there we go. What it will do is, if students are still taking the placement test, it will put the assignment over it. So that's why I was like, I recommend that you really go through the placement test first and then do the assignment. Otherwise, your questions will get replaced and they'll never get the placement test done. So there's that. There are other options for you there, but I think I'm going to save that for another time. I think I'm going to wrap up the tech talk here for now and save the rest for later. But there's so much more that we can unpack there. But I want to make sure you are armed with some goodies before you go. So first of all, thank you so much. If you've made it through this tech talk or the 49 other ones that I've done, I just want to say thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I really enjoy doing these tech talks. I'm hoping to do a lot more with this, especially if we're coming out with really cool tools like Prodigy. Like the idea of this, something like this even existing at all, is just blowing me away. So really play with the tool, see what it's like. I have a bunch of resources here on the Prodigy page that I think you should take advantage of. There's some specific ones for like parents on here. So they really try to help not only the teacher, but also help the teacher, help the parents, or just help the parents, period. And there's a couple of different blog articles that I think they're from Prodigy, but I think they are pretty broad enough that they could apply it with other tools as well. So check out the links. Next is a page dedicated to technology integration on here. if you want to know more about, how you're going to plan to use technology tools, or if you're already using a technology tool, how you can get more out of it, this is a good place to start in terms of frameworks and also standards as well. Check them out. And at the very end, I'm on this page. Once again, thank you so much for listening. I hope this was a valuable use of your time, and I hope you feel encouraged to use this tool. And even if you don't think this is the tool is good for you, it might be good for a colleague. So reach out to them, especially if they're teaching any of the core classes like math and English. And of course, this tool is going to grow over time. So keep a lookout for the different updates for this tool. Anyways, I've been Kashawn Hopkins. We were joined here with Kurt Bernhardt. If you want to reach out to either one of us, you can do so through techteam@opsrc.net. Additionally, if you have a moment, please take some time to do the evaluation. I really appreciate getting feedback on there, because I want to make these Tech Talks even better for next year. And then if you want to revisit some of the other stuff that I've done, go to opsrc.net/Tech Talks. And if you like what I do here, or if you just have some feedback, or if you want to get connected to the communities here, or if you just want to share a tool that you think is amazing and you think other people should see how amazing it is, reach out through our socials here. We have an amazing communications director working tirelessly on some really great stuff. And so we would love to hear from you. So we got all the buttons down there. You can click on any of that for any of the slides that it has that on. Yeah, and just connect with us. With that, one last thank you, and have a great day, everybody.